Hot standby routing protocol is another protocol that we use for first hop redundancy for routing. In my opinion, it's the most common one that I see in customer environments. In order to use hot standby routing protocol, once again, we have to enable that feature on the Nexus devices. If I don't enable this feature, I won't see the commands to be able to configure this protocol on the Nexus device. In hot standby routing protocol, we have a virtual MAC and IP address, and one interface is the active router. It receives and routes packets destined for the virtual MAC of the group. During a failure, the standby router will assume the active role, and we assign a priority to our devices to determine who is the active and who is the passive device. Now, the only time that this is different on a Nexus device is when you're using VPC, as we discussed previously. In that case, both routers would be active. HSRP uses hello messages over UDP to detect failure and designate roles. This is an example of an HSRP technology where I have a physical router on the left and on the right, the 192.0.2.1 and 192.0.2.3. Those are the physical IP addresses of those routers that share a virtual IP address of 192.0.2.2. So I would have all of my hosts configured to use that virtual IP address as a gateway, and the active router, which is the one on the left, would handle all the requests. Once again, because this is an active-passive scenario, we can configure the network for load sharing by creating more than one gateway where, for instance, the first router would be the primary for the first gateway and the second router would be the primary for the second gateway. At that point, the routers would respectively become the standby router for each other, and if one of them failed, it would basically take over the active role for both gateways at the same time. And if both routers remain active, we can then load balance against multiple devices at the same time. But in this case, I have to configure my hosts to use two different gateways. This concludes Lesson 10.